Hi everybody, welcome to today's video. So I'm going to be doing my January wrap up. I cannot believe it's already February. And so let's talk about all the books. I have a stack here, and then I have two that were on my Kindle that I don't have the physical copies of, so I'll put up the cover for you guys. So I'll start off with those first. So first up we have It's Watching by Lindsay Curry. This one is a middle grade horror book, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. I'm a huge fan of this author. She writes middle grade horror usually, and it's all based in the Chicagoland area. So she draws on actual folklore and stories from the area, and writes stories involving kids that have to investigate or are being haunted or whatnot. So this specific one is about a very popular haunted graveyard. I can't remember exactly where it's at, but I know it's the Chicagoland area. And so these 3 kids go there to try and meet this ghost, and in order to write an article about it because they're trying to make the school paper. So they go there, and then they bring a ghost home basically, and they have lots of issues. So they try to solve who the ghost is, how to get rid of the ghost, all of that kind of stuff. And I gave it 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. There's some great friendships. The writing was great. It was a quick read. And since I'm from the Chicago area, I've actually heard of this graveyard. So it was really cool to see it in a book like that. And I would definitely recommend, especially if you like middle grade, or if you have a child that likes middle grade and is looking for something spooky. It takes place during Halloween too. So I think you should read it closer to Halloween to really get the effects of it. But yeah, this one just came out February 4th, I think it's coming out. So I would definitely recommend if you're interested. And then the other one that I read on my Kindle that I don't have with me is called The Longest Night. I believe it's 22 horror stories that all go around winter, and it's from a bunch of authors that I know, like Josh Malerman, Rachel Harrison. So there's a lot of really popular horror authors, and it's edited by Lindy Ryan, and I know she writes some horror books herself also. So this one, I gave 3 stars. I don't feel like I'm really an anthology person, and this book really showed me that. I don't know what it is, but when there's a bunch of stories together, they all just kind of blur for me, and nothing really stood out as amazing. None of them were really horrible either. So if you're looking for an anthology and you like anthologies, then maybe check this one out. Otherwise, if you're like me and not really big into anthologies, I would say you could skip it. So let me go into the books that I do have here with me. A lot of these I read on my Kindle, but I got the physical books for the video to show you. So first up we have The Divide by Morgan Richter. This one was an ARC that I got sent, and I had it on my Kindle. So we follow a woman who is a failed actress. So she lived in Iowa, she moved to LA in chase of becoming an actress, the classic story, and she landed a role in this movie called The Divide. And that was 20 years ago. After that movie, she couldn't get any more work, so she kind of just started working doing other stuff. And now she's a psychic, except she's not really a psychic, and she even admits she's kind of a fraud, but she runs her own business. And the director of that first movie, he is murdered. So when the police show up at her door, I guess she looks exactly like his wife, and they think that she's the wife in hiding because the wife is missing as well. So, and then something else that's kind of weird is that the wife was claiming that she was the one in the movie, not this other woman. And so this other woman, the psychic, what's her name again? Jenny. She kind of infiltrates her way into the friend group and everything, and she's trying to solve the murder because, well, first of all, she was friends with the director, but also she's trying to find this woman who looks just like her, and she's trying to figure out, like, are they related? Like, what the heck is going on? And she's trying to figure out, like, why she's saying she's in the movie when it's actually Jenny. And so, I know this sounds a bit confusing, but when you read it, it's not confusing, and it's really easy to understand. I gave this one 4 stars. I thought it was very interesting. I liked, so things kind of do get weird. There is like a weird spot where it kind of goes a little sci-fi, and I liked that in this book, but I do feel like some things were left open-ended at the end, and things were not totally explained. So I almost wish that the author went a little more sci-fi, a little more weird, and kind of fully went there, if that makes sense. Otherwise, I think the writing was good. I liked the characters, the mystery was intriguing, and I liked the Hollywood, LA aspect, and like the movie industry. We kind of get into that a little bit. And the cover is pretty, so I would definitely recommend this one, and I would probably read more from this author. I believe this is a debut, and for a debut, I thought it was really good. So that one was on my physical TBR, so I'm checking that one off. That is part of my goal this year, to read my TBR, so that's good. I read that one. Next up, we have Finding Margaret Fuller by Alison Pataki. This one is also a 4-star. It's historical fiction. This one I picked from my TBR jar, and it was on my shelves. I bought it, I think thrifting or something. I don't read a lot of historical fiction, but I did enjoy this one. So Margaret Fuller is a real person. She was a writer. She was friends with a lot of big authors, like in the mid, kind of early 1800s. Like Emerson, Thoreau, those kind of people. And so it kind of follows her adult life. She was the first woman, like, war correspondent, like news reporter type thing, and she was also like a book reviewer. She wrote for the paper. So obviously during the early to mid 1800s, women were treated a lot differently back in the day. They didn't have the same opportunities, and Margaret was kind of going against that, and she was trying to fight for women's rights. She's a big pioneer in that as well. So I liked reading about her story and just kind of everything that she did. It was very interesting. I've never heard of this woman before, so it was nice to see. And so I think most of this stuff is like true stuff, but it's like a novelization of it, so I think it's technically still fiction and not nonfiction. But I would definitely recommend, especially if you're looking for something that's, you know, nonfiction, or if you're like interested in like women's rights, the fight for women's rights, or this time period around early Civil War. Next up, we have A Cozy Mystery, French Quarter Fright Night, and by Ellen Byron. So this one is actually book 3 in a series. I didn't realize it was book 3. So I read this book from NetGalley, and I didn't read the other 2, so I feel like my rating is not as accurate as it would be if I would have read the other ones. But this one, we follow a woman. She works at this place, and they turn their in New Orleans, and it's Halloween. So it's like a museum, like it's like a mansion turned museum type thing. And this one, they turn it into a haunted house, and they basically, they turn it into a haunted house. And then the next door neighbor is causing, someone moves in next door and is causing a lot of issues. And the main character, we find out it's actually her dead husband's best friend. And then his assistant, he's like a movie actor, I think, and his assistant gets murdered. And of course, the people at the hotel or the museum are suspected because they've been having so many problems with the neighbor. So yeah, we kind of follow. They try to solve it and everything. This one was a 3-star for me. I thought it was just fine. I liked the characters, the mystery was fine. But unfortunately, like, I don't feel like I knew the characters as well, but that was more my fault because I didn't read the other two in the series. Also, a big part of this, we had the main character. She's trying to find like her birth family, and I think I missed a lot of backstory on that, so I was kind of a bit confused, or like I didn't really care about that situation as much because I didn't know. So if you're interested in this series, I would probably recommend reading the first one, but the writing was good, the mystery was good, so if you're into the cozy mysteries, I would recommend. Next up, Here Lies a Vengeful Bitch by Cody Crawley. This one is a YA. It's kind of like a thriller. It's kind of like a slasher thriller, bit paranormal type thing. So Annie lives in this small town, and she is kind of like the bad girl of the town. Everybody knows her. She gets in trouble a lot. Her mom and her don't really get along. And one day she wakes up dead, and she's like back from the dead, trying to figure out who killed her, what happened to her, and then get like vengeance. So this book, I think I gave 3 stars as well. This one's from NetGalley also. The thing for me, the synopsis, like right away it says she's dead. We know she's dead. We're reading it and everything, but like she doesn't know she's dead until like a quarter of the way in, or a third of the way. And I wish that that wasn't in the synopsis, because I feel like it would have been more powerful of a twist and it would have been more interesting. Also, we fought, like, there's some gore and stuff. It's like kind of like a slasher, but it didn't totally grab my attention. And I feel like some of it was a bit dramatic. It is YA, so I feel like sometimes YA is a bit over the top and not totally my taste. But if you're a YA reader and something like this does sound good to you, I would recommend it. But, you know, the mystery part of it and everything was interesting. This one reminded me a lot of My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. But I'm not a huge fan of that book either. But if you like that one, this one might be for you. Next up, we have a few middle grade. So Nightmare in the Backyard by Jeff Strand. This one I actually listened to as an audiobook, but I didn't get it from NetGalley. So this one we follow 3 girls. They're camping in their backyard, and things start to go weird and strange. And all of a sudden we have tentacles coming out of the ground. They can't find their moms. Like, it goes crazy real quick. This is a very short book because it's middle grade. And overall, 4 stars. I thought it was a fun read. It's very quick paced. It was monsters. It was, you know, it would probably be it wasn't scary for me as an adult, but as a middle grade reader, it might be a bit spooky and scary. So yeah, I would recommend. I don't have a lot to say about this one because it is just like a short, quick, action-packed middle grade horror, but I would still recommend if that is something that interests you, or if you have a kid that is interested in middle grade horror. Speaking of middle grade horror, we have Goosebumps, The Werewolf of Fever Swamp. So this one, of course, I'm sure everyone is familiar with Goosebumps. I think this is like 13 or 14 of like the original Goosebumps, and I've been slowly reading my way through them. This one, we have a kid who moves into a new house, and then there's like a swamp in the backyard, and then you know, he goes exploring. Things quickly unfold, and obviously there's werewolves. So this one was good. I pretty much always give these 5 stars. They're quick reads, and yeah, I don't have much to say. And then we have When Frankie Made a Human by Rachel DeLay. This one is another middle grade, very short. It has a lot of illustrations as well, and like the words are very small, or large, sorry. So very quick read. Basically we have Frankie. He's a descendant of Frankenstein, and he lives in a world where there's monsters and then humans are separated and stuff. But Frankie doesn't really get along with a lot of other monsters. He's kind of bullied, and he doesn't have a lot of friends at school. So he decides to make a human himself that he could be friends with. Things quickly go wrong, of course, and he finds an unexpected friend and everything with the neighbor, so that's fun. So this was a fun read. I gave it 5 stars because it's like exactly what I expected. I would recommend to kids if they're interested. And yeah, I thought it was cute. The illustrations are cute. Next up, we have another YA, Under the Surface by Diana Urban. So this one, we have a group of students. They go to Paris on a school trip, and while they're in Paris, well, the one girl is very interested in traveling and like adventurous things. So when her one friend sneaks off to a party, she wants to follow her and get her back to the hotel safely. And then they decide to go, well, the girl meets a boy, a French boy, and he invites her to a party, and it's down in the catacombs. So they decide to go down in the catacombs to explore, find this party, but things quickly go wrong, of course, and they get lost in the catacombs. So basically, they're trying to get out of the catacombs, figure out what happened to them. Things are very weird down there. They start discovering some odd stuff. This one was a 3-star for me. I feel like it was very dramatic. A lot of the characters to me were just like annoying. I don't know if it's because it was YA and I just didn't really connect to them as much or what. But the concept was cool, but I don't think the execution was totally there. The characters were a bit annoying, and I didn't really connect too much with anybody. But yeah, I have liked this author in the past, but this one was a bit of a miss for me. We have another YA. This Book Kills by Ravina Gurin. This one we have a elite boarding school, high school, and we have a girl who is a writer, and she turns in a like murder mystery short story for a class, and then one of her classmates is murdered like the way that the chick was, or whoever was in her short story. So she's kind of the suspect, and she's trying to solve the murder herself and stay alive because she starts getting threatening messages and things are quickly unfolding. She's trying to figure out who in this boarding school she can trust and who is the killer. So this one I gave 4 stars. I thought it was pretty good. I liked the writing was good, the characters were good, the plot was good. I do feel like things were, well, like with a lot of YA, I do feel like things were a bit dramatic at times. And I feel like some of the characters made some bad decisions, or there was like obvious things in front of their face that they didn't see. But overall, I did have a fun time reading this one. I feel like a lot of murder mystery, like YA murder mystery, is fun to read, quick to read, and I would recommend this widely to people if you're interested. I also think the cover is pretty cool, and I liked the dark academia vibes that were happening. I feel like that's super popular right now also. It's dark academia, so if you're interested in that, I would recommend this one. Okay, so we have another middle grade, Theodore Hendricks and the Curious Case of the Cursed Beetle by Jordan Copy. So this one, just like the Frankenstein one, is pretty short. It has some illustrations. Theodora lives with a bunch of monsters, and then there's a necklace with a cursed beetle. Things quickly go wrong, and she kind of has to figure out what's going on and fix it with her best friend there. Overall, this is a cute read. I liked the pictures. I don't feel like this one really stuck with me as much, so I did give it 3 stars because it didn't really stick with me as much. Like, I read this early in January, and I don't feel like I remember it that well. So it was a cute story, cute pictures, but it wasn't totally for me. But I wouldn't not recommend it to people if they were interested. And then lastly, this was my first read, Haunt Sweet Home by Sarah Pinsker. This one is a novella, and I gave it 2 stars. Unfortunately, this book totally was not for me. So we have a woman who is kind of like trying to figure her life out. I think she's like in her mid-20s or whatnot. And you know, that age where we don't know what the heck we're doing, but we're expected to. So this one follows a woman, and her cousin is like a big TV star, big TV host guy for like reality shows. And he hosts a show where people buy like haunted houses and they renovate them. And so she gets hired to be a production assistant, and basically she's like in charge of making the house haunted, if that makes sense. And so we just follow her, and then things get kind of weird when she meets like this other woman who, I won't spoil it, but things get weird basically. So I feel like the twist in here was like one of the dumbest I've ever read, and I feel so bad saying that, but like to me this book was just kind of dumb. Like, I don't know what the point was. It wasn't scary, it wasn't like fun or funny, and it took me a while to read, even though it was a novella. So I would not really recommend this one. The cover is cool, and I feel like the story was there, but it just was not good execution. So unfortunately, I would not recommend this one. So yeah, those are all the books I read in January, and let me know in the comments what you guys read, what your favorites were, if we read any of the same books, and I will see you guys in the next video.